guys, back with part 2 of the review of the Angels of Death supplement. We're going to be covering in part 2 a couple of the formations and a couple of the chapter-specific rules. So to start off with, we'll get straight into it. We're going to cover the Anvil Strike Force. So, Jeremy, do you want to open up with some thoughts?
Sure,
just a brief overview?
Sure, the Anvil Strike Force is interesting, obviously. It follows that kind of Decurion style format that we've seen very prevalent since the Necrons came out.
Yep.
It's interesting because it just gives us, as a Space Marine players, we get an opportunity to run an armoured, just a very comprehensive armoured kind of formation. The interesting kind of elements of it is everything, is either a vehicle or an infantry squad mounted in a transport. So there's no such thing in this formation as just a foot slogging unit. I guess the most interesting part over and above the Warlord traits was that you don't actually need kind of any form of demi company as a core. You can actually just take an armoured task force as a core. So we know an armoured task force, just basically 3 vehicle units. So you could take 3 Predators, 3 Whirlwinds, and that's just the minimum requirement to start to get into this.
You can run an SM army without any tacticals or scouts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it allows for some unique kind of cheap options and combos. You could get unlock certain things without having to take that troop tax, so to speak. Yeah.
One of the other interesting things with this formation is that the Warlord, you've got the option there to make your Warlord a vehicle, and it kind of plays into that. So one of the command traits there, it says that you can choose a vehicle to be a Warlord. If you do, he can either shoot twice or nominate another friendly vehicle within 24 inches from the detachment, and that vehicle can then fire all of its weapons twice.
So it's a Warlord trait, that should be worth noted. So, yes, it allows any vehicle from that detachment to shoot again at the end of the
and it also
at the end of the phase, correct?
Phase.
And it gives you option in here to the Space Marine HQ tanks, the command tanks from the Land Raider and the
Grav Rhino.
Yeah, correct.
So we'll let Jarrod. Do you want to tell us some good candidates? So if we won't jump the gun too much. If we're taking an Anvil Strike Force, and we have this Warlord trait that allows any vehicle to fire at the end of the shooting phase again, what vehicles would we be looking for to capitalise on that Warlord trait?
Look, there's a number of vehicles, I guess, that you want to be shooting. So you're looking at things like potentially a Land Raider. You potentially got your Storm Raven, full of all of its guns. It's not limited to a single weapon, which I think is good. You can fire your entire loadout. I'm not sure whether or not, I assume you can choose to shoot it at a different target.
Yeah, I believe you can.
Yeah,
there's no reason that you wouldn't.
So you potentially got a Land Raider or a Storm Raven being able to potentially do a lot of damage to different units.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of other tanks that we discussed.
Yes.
I heard talk about people trying to use it with the Squadron of Vindicators. From what we can read here, that doesn't work at all. So,
well, the Vindicators you need in order to shoot that big apocalyptic blast, you need all 3 to fire to contribute to that volley. So, because this rule stipulates that only one vehicle as opposed to a unit may fire, our interpretation is that you would not be able to get that apocalyptic blast.
Which I think is reasonable to assume.
Vindicator still getting that extra strength 10 AP 2 blast is still good. Interestingly, with the things like the Command Land Raider, with the Grav Cannon, or the Storm Raven, you can still use Power of the Machine Spirit on your second shot shooting. Yeah. So you could theoretically, with a Land Raider, shoot 4 different targets in the one shooting phase, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, quite good. Another thing worth mentioning as well is the rule here: vehicles in an Anvil Strike Force detachment ignore the effects of Crew Shaken and Crew Stunned. They still do lose their hull point, but it just keeps those tanks doing stuff and shooting and moving around. Just an extra turn. Look, it's certainly good. I mean, it meshes quite well with what the formation
I'm really excited about it. I've got a bit of a soft spot for SM mech, like mechanized SM list, and this
you've got a few tanks.
Yeah, this is one of probably the first formations that allows you to do it almost exclusively, and so I'm pretty excited to have a little play with this bad boy.
It almost allows you to run a guard style list with Space Marine tanks.
Yeah,
which I think is cool.
Yeah.
It definitely empowers things like fringe SM vehicles like Predators, Whirlwinds, perhaps that there's once you kind of add in these very small benefits like can't be stunned.
Yeah.
They the other kind of things that they have, they don't have to pay a troops tax. You start, and when you kind of combo that with things like Iron Hands, Chapter Tactics and stuff, perhaps you can get a bit of a nice mech army happening. So it's interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Alright, we'll move on. So we'll touch on the fact that, it does contain a few things. Scarblade Strike Force, again, we've seen from Kayan, so no.
We won't go into those
dwelling on
things
that.
too much. They've been around for a while now, so we're going to move to the stuff that's pretty fresh.
Yeah, so obviously, like, we know that a lot of the Raven Guard and White Scar stuff that came out, some really powerful things. The Shadow Strike Force and all the kind of first turn assaults coming from Raven Guard. Some really interesting formations from White Scars, but
The
they're
relics
not,
from White
yeah,
Scars.
not
and all
really
that sort of
new,
stuff.
so
Yeah.
we won't touch on that. But they are in the book.
It is worth pointing out, and we've said this before already, these formations, however, now are available to other, Space Marine chapters. So
Definitely.
that's going to be fun.
So you've got your Sternhammer Strike Force for Imperial Fist, you've got your Crimson Fist and Black Templar's Warlord traits, previously printed in White Dwarf. Again, all just available in the one section. What is worth covering is definitely the Iron Hands. So Iron Hands, a majority of this is a reprint. There looks to be a couple of stipulations that it's definitely worth touching on.
Well, they got a Decurion style detachment, and
So that is new for them as well.
So they've got their first Decurion.
Before we go on, sorry to interrupt. So it's not that, it's kind of that the Curian's kind of like a slight expansion of what was the...
It's an overlay on top of what they already had.
Yeah.
So it's the Clan Rokan supplement, and then they've given you the option to take those options within this Decurion style detachment, and you're getting double command benefits and double not command benefits, but you're getting all these stacking rules now, which are making Iron Hands look really, really strong, looking really strong.
Absolutely.
So we've got obviously the most noticeable. We'll start at the top. So they get an additional Warlord trait if you go from this Fist of Medusa Strike Force. Mm-hmm. Has to be taken from Tactical or Strategic.
Tactical or Strategic, which isn't a bad play. It's a bonus Warlord trait for 1, so that's always good.
Always good.
We're finding a lot of these Maelstrom type mission types, your ATCs and stuff. I think the Strategic table helps a lot with that.
Yep.
So again, look, that's quite good to be able to do. A rule here, reject the flesh, embrace the machine, I think is the big thing that a lot of people seem to be super excited about. Mm-hmm. Models in this detachment add 1 to any feel no pain rolls they make, while they're within 12 inches of any independent character from the same detachment.
Yeah.
Needless to say, Iron Hands are quite good with their feel no pains as it is.
Yeah. Yep.
This has a lot of combos that make that really, really reliable.
It's not hard to make an army with, army-wide 5-up FMP. It's just, you get that for free.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm playing Iron Hands, I now have FMP on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Better than your, was it the Scorpions one from...
with your
Forge
Apothecary.
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So it's like that, but it's free and it's...
And it's stacked with
40K.
FMP.
Yeah.
So-
And you can't lose it from a single model dying. You have that. So.
Yep.
That's awesome.
There's obviously tons of ramifications. I think that the two most significant ramifications are the double ability to get 2-up FMP for Iron Hand. So the first ability is obviously any unit that Endurance is cast on that's within 12 of IC will have their 4-up from Endurance, goes to a 3-up and then a 2-up with the combination of this command benefit and the chapter tactics. So that's ability to get reasonably accessible 2-up FMP.
2-up, you can
Pretty
either...
reliable. These days with the proliferation of Psychers, it's pretty reliable to get that Endurance. But there are other ways to get it as well.
The second one being Gorgon's Chain.
Gorgon's Chain.
Gorgon's
the third
Chain.
one actually being the Warlord trait as well, because there's
the
also a
Warlord
Warlord
trait,
trait there, which gives you +1 FMP. So you could technically have a 1-up FMP.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically you can. And again, it just makes it really good across the board. I mean, an entire unit can be done by Endurance. You can have a tanking character with the Gorgon's Chain. You could potentially have another character that happens to be a Warlord, get the Warlord trait. There's actually multiple sources of being able to get a 2-up feel no pain. And
another thing worth noting is...
effective.
Sorry. Another thing worth noting is that with these new Decurions that we're seeing coming out, and it was also in the WAR Council, they're now allowing you to take relics from both like the old Codex and the supplement. So now you can literally take like Heart of the Gorgon and Shield Eternal in the same army, in the same unit if you want to. And there's a lot of other... opens the doors to a lot of things, I think.
Absolutely.
So we kind of glossed over Imperial Fists, and Imperial Fists didn't get too much. They just basically got a consolidated Sentinels of Terror.
Yeah.
But it is worth noting that the command benefit from their formation is basically it's kind of like a combination of both the Imperial Fists and the Sentinels of Terror chapter tactics, which basically means they get twin linked on their bolters regardless of the range that they're in. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I think for the Sons of Dawn, the regular battle company from the Codex will be better So a regular, just normal bare bones battle company will be better for Imperial Fists than this Sons of Dawn detachment. However, what is pertinent is that you will be able to take that battle company and get access to the Sentinels of Terror relics.
Yep.
So in the past, you couldn't really do that. Like you could.
You had to limit yourself, I believe, to taking.
You're in an interesting situation.
You couldn't take both access to both.
There was a
relics.
couple of relics you kind of wanted from the Sentinels of Terror, like the improved Auspex was good.
Yeah.
But then you sacrificed the Shield Eternal, which is something that every player kind of wants. So now you can have both those things.
Exactly.
And
So I think that's worth noting, and that's something that Imperial Fist players will probably utilise.
Absolutely. So going back to the Sons of Gorgon, there's a couple other rules there, I think.
Absolutely. So we've also got the Roused Machine Spirits. Now what this does is any vehicles that happen to fall within the Fist of Medusa Strike Force have Power Machine Spirit if they're within 12 inches of or carrying an independent character. So your ICs that are in a vehicle now have Power Machine Spirit no matter what that vehicle is, or alternatively if they're within 12 inches of that character.
It's interesting. I look at the rules here. Both of them sort of obviously centric around the IC. So it's almost like a game of chess. You got your king in the middle, and you're just trying to protect him throughout the game. But those rules are obviously going to be very, very pertinent. And there's obviously a lot of shenanigans you can do with Power Machine Spirit and like the addition of Dreadnought squadrons, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and it's any IC. So guys, people taking, I believe, let me just confirm. You can take things like your Librarius Conclave. You've got your Strike Force Command Squad, which has, you can have a Terminator Captain. So you could actually potentially put a couple of ICs in the list.
Yeah, it's not hard to get ICs.
Just chain them.
Yeah,
just
chain them. And Iron Hands, this particular formation, just like the Clan Rakan, can take 3 Tech Marines for every other IC.
Yep.
So they're not limited. They don't have that scarcity of ICs like other...
Which is interesting that they kept that, because since that rule, since the Clan Rockman book was printed, we saw the release of the 7th Ed Space Marine Codex, and Tech Marines became like a generic HQ slot. So now you can actually take this proliferation of 2 wound, 2 up save characters. You can roll around on bikes and whatnot. There's a lot of big plays to be made there.
I think well, before we move on just with the Iron Hands, there's some important kind of things to discuss, which is mainly to do with that, which I think is a little bit underrated. The fact that they're everything within that 12-inch bubble of
the Power Machine Spirit.
Yeah, and I think if we go back, you'll notice that, like with that first detachment we discussed, the Armoured Might or whatever it was called. They can also, Iron Hands can also take an Armoured Task Force as a core.
Yeah.
So that once again, you don't need that big demi company that is a very kind of difficult thing.
It can be a bit of a tax unless you're running full company.
And often when you look at something like an Armoured Task Force, you'll say, you look at the choices you have: Predators, Whirlwinds, Vindicators.
Yep.
Not necessarily the most kind of mouth-watering things to choose from. But when you can give those Predator Annihilators Power the Machine Spirit, now they're kind of like, rather than being these kind of like pillboxes that just kind of have to shoot all their las cannons and overkill something potentially, being able to shoot the twin-linked las cannon at one thing and then 2 las cannons at something else makes them resemble more like a unit of long fangs from obviously from Space Wolves, where you have the utility to be able to split las cannon shots. Makes them a lot more just versatile and more effective. Yeah, more effective.
You get more bang for your buck.
Yeah, so and that just those Predators will unlock your detachment. So
and again, you get a Tech Marine in that formation as well. So there's another Tech Marine straight off the bat.
And the vehicles, of course, being Iron Hands, will hope will not die. So they're sturdy. They're throwing out damage. They're throwing out damage in multiple sources.
Yeah. In the Armoured Task Force, you've also got the Ignoring Crew Stun and Shaken as well. So you don't even need to take the previous one we talked about, which is the Armoured Might, because you've already got Ignore, Stun, and Shaken. You're going to be within 6 of your IC. It all synergizes to create like a really, really strong.
But if you do want that unit of command squad bikes with the 2-up F&P, you will have to take that demi company to unlock the command squad. So you've got so many options, but a lot of ways to run Iron Hands now. So
you don't really need to. Again, if you just take an Armoured Task Force, you can take a HQ and then get your
command squad under Strike Force command. Chuck them on a bike.
You can take it in.
Absolutely.
You can.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that fits all within that.
And then you take your Librarius Conclave with that. Put everyone on bikes.
That's insane.
Disgusting 2-up saves.
I think it's fair to say people will get really excited about building Iron Hands.
I'd love to be.
I think one of the local players we see, Michael Hamilton, was running Iron Hands.
Yeah, you might dust them off
a while ago. You could see that have a bit of a resurgence, and I'm sure you'll cause people quite a bit of grief.
Might have to repaint my Imperial Fists.
Get a couple of cans of
Get some black spray out, yeah.
All right, that pretty much covers Iron Hands. I think, Jeremy, did you have any more notes on that?
The only other thing that's worth noting, sorry to harp on a little bit, but with that Power of the Machine spirit, I think that Contemptor Dreadnoughts are really benefit a lot from that.
Sure.
It's any vehicle gained it. So basically, it gives them the ability to basically make full use of those Kiri's assault cannons, so they can shoot their Kiri's, basically operate like mini Imperial Knights.
Yeah.
So the way in which an Imperial Knight will blast at a target and then fire its heavy stubborn and assault something else.
Yep.
Contemptor Dreadnoughts will be able to make use of that. So really good.
I agree. Expensive unit, but they're able to shoot their assault cannons at one unit, shoot their combi bolter at another unit, charge that unit with fleet, have a 5-up invod against shooting, 6-up against combat, and have will not die. That's going to be hard to kill.
What's not to love?
Yeah, that Iron Stone, repair them with that Iron Stone relic, so... Yeah.
Great stuff there.
Good stuff.
Next on, we'll touch on Sons of Vulcan. Alright, so Salamanders. Salamanders have been left behind for quite a while with having their own special rules.
Good to see that's changed.
I have a Salamanders army that doesn't see much of the light of day, to be honest. I've kind of not enjoyed playing them as much as some of the other new Space Marine armies that are available, but they've finally got some rules which are going to help add to that. So with the Salamanders, the Decurion is the Flameblade Strike Force. First of all, we've got the rules, again, same sort of deal with the double Warlord traits. You can have an extra Warlord trait, must be taken from the personal traits table. Again, there's a lot of cool stuff on
There's
there.
some decent stuff. Well, I mean... Decent. It's free, right?
It's worth pointing out with these traits is that you always reroll the doubles as well. So if you're going to get a free personal trait, you always want to have another stab at it to get something else as well, because you can reroll the duplicate.
If there's something you really want on that table, you've got quite a good chance of getting it.
Is Eternal Warrior in that? No, it's like there's Feel No Pain. I think there's a few things in there.
Have a look.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Interestingly enough, these guys have a couple of ways to get some of those rules anyway.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. Well, while Shawn checks that out, Scorched Earth gives +1 strength to flamer weapons. Not one step back means a unit from the detachment will be fearless if it remains stationary in its movement phase, which is quite interesting. +1 strength to flamers. Look, it doesn't rock my world. There's some good uses for it. You're looking at, Land Raiders, I guess, your Redeemers that are now going to be Strength 7 AP3. It makes them just a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, that Strength 6 to Strength 7 jump isn't phenomenal. I think the most pertinent jump is the Heavy Flamer jump, because it goes from 5 to 6. Yep. So with that Strength 6 AP4, you're now looking at the same stat line as an Incinerator. You're IDing Eldar, you are...
Nurglings with their 2-up cover save.
That's huge. But unfortunately, Shawn, as you were talking about before, it's quite hard to squeeze heavy. Like, where are you going to get these heavy flamers from?
Yeah, there's no unit that can just take a whole plethora of heavy flamers. You can take one in your Cataphractic Terminators, which are new.
You can take 2 on Land Speeders.
Yeah. Heavy flamers is something you're going to want to typically when I play them, I want to drop pod them in, I want to get accurate, I want to get nice and close, I want to get that big hit, and then I want to wall of flame things when they charge me back. So, but there's no unit that just brings a whole plethora of flamers.
No. I'll go out on a limb and say Salamanders suffer from having really fluffy rules, but not fluffy options.
Yeah.
To build the units, you got Blood Angels that are able to rock a heavy flamer and a tactical squad. A sore point for myself. Salamanders can't.
I would have liked to
the
see
Sons
them.
of Fire, and they just don't bring it.
I would have liked to see them be able to take them in their dev squads.
I thought that would be cool to see.
I would have liked to see them take them in their tactical squads. Why not?
Just taken as a heavy weapon option kind of thing.
Sure.
Do we want to cover the personal traits really quickly and see what's worth double dipping there, or
not a lot, to be honest? You got counterattack, Furious Charge, Outflank. That's usable, I suppose.
Sure.
+1 VP for each character slated in a challenge. I guess it has its places. FNP and Fearless and It Will Not Die. That's number 6. Sorry, so number 5 is FNP, number 6 is Fearless and It Will Not Die.
Yeah, they're not bad. Combo, if you got Fearless and Feel No Pain and Will Not Die,
You'd be happy with FNP. I'm always happy when I get FNP.
Yeah, I think FNP is a standard there.
Yeah.
We're going to glance over sort of the other details of the formation. Let's get stuck into Warlord traits. We'll cover them really briefly. For 1, we've got your Warlord adds +1 to his strength. Number 2 is your Warlord has Feel No Pain 2+ against wounds caused by flamer weapons. 3 is quite interesting. If the mission uses variable game length, and they do, you can always choose to add 3 to any d6 roll to determine if it ends or continues. Now, it is a +3, no -3, which means you can use it to prolong a game. You can't use it to end a game if you really need it to be ended. But I guess, again, that's sort of the salamanders.
Yeah, stubborn, relentless.
Yeah, so that feeds into that. Any notes on that, or...?
I'm sure we've all been in situations where we've just needed that one more turn.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, nothing's worse than you get to your turn 5 and you think, oh, I've got this. All of a sudden, all the old jet bikes jump on your objectives and you're like, oh, if I roll a 1 now and then it comes up, you don't have to worry about that anymore. And then you just win. You just win.
That's a good wallet trade.
It's helpful. It is. It's probably one of the better ones.
It's worth noting, though, that your wallet will need to be alive to be able to use that. Can we get... Let's...
no.
That's how wallet trades usually work.
You can always choose to add...
You can always choose... I don't think so.
I think, though, that with the rules from the BRB, like, wallet traits are only in effect while the ward's alive. As soon as he's slain, they don't take effect.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then obviously you'll have to keep him alive.
Yeah. 4, we've got Warlord has will not die. 5 is you can re-roll all failed to hit rolls with any mastercrafted weapons rather than just one, including chapter relics, which is...
Is that army-wide? Does that apply to the whole army?
Your Warlord can re-roll.
Only
so it is
Warlord,
specific
okay.
Warlord trait. They get mastercrafted for free, but look, you get re-rolls to hit. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
And number 6 is your Warlord at any Salamander's units within 12 of him have stubborn and can re-roll failed leadership test. Again, look, there's some nice things, but I would probably prefer to roll on those personal
I
traits.
couldn't imagine anyone choosing to roll on that table.
It's interesting to note with the Salamander's doctrine as well, there's the fearless rules also. Did we go over that?
We did glance over that, so I know Jeremy was pretty excited about that.
Oh, not really. I think it's just one of those things where people will kind of look at something like that and say, terrible. But I think it's one of those things where, Space Marines are obviously renowned for having that and they shall know no fear, which is obviously great. But it doesn't stop you from getting, morale tested off objectives, which is just often a way an opponent will just eke out little 5% advantages here and there.
Yep.
They might pick up a card that is control objective 2, and you've got a tactical squad objective 2, and they kind of say, look, I guess I'll just move a unit up there and just try to get you off the objective, and they'll have a couple of stabs at it, and one of their stabs is going to be that morale check, and if you fail, then you're off.
Yeah, it's situationally very good. Otherwise, it's just okay,
It can be.
or even good. Interestingly enough, you have to remain stationary in the movement phase, so it does limit you to those objective-holding units that you don't want moving around the board. Again, look, it's a nice bonus if you can utilise it, especially you're on the back of the table, sitting on an objective. You might be 6 inches from the table edge. You really don't want to fail a leadership test.
It
helps them stick around.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword, though. I mean, I've also been in scenarios where, like, having fearless has been detrimental because I've been locked in a combat that I probably wanted to get out of, so I could shoot that target or whatever. So it's just one of those things where it can play to your favour, it can go against
But
you.
you can control when you move. So, like, if you don't want to be fearless, you just shuffle a little bit.
Sure.
If you want to be fearless, you just don't move.
But if you're sitting there, and it's only the movement phase, right? So if you're sitting on an objective and they charge you, you're like, cool, I'm going to hold this turn. And then you keep holding for the rest of the game.
You wanted to...
And maybe you needed to get out of there.
Interesting to note as well, you wouldn't be able to go to ground with these units if you happen to be in cover and they're shooting plasma blasts at you.
Yeah, good point.
So a double-edged sword is a very good point.
Very good.
We'll cover the relics really briefly, I think. Actually, there's a couple of good things in here that are worth mentioning. I guess we'll just pick out what's quite good. We'll start off with the Drake Smiter. So we're looking at 50 points here. It's essentially a Thunder Hammer. So we're looking at double strength AP2, concussive, unwieldy, specialist weapon, and it is mastercrafted. What's really interesting is the special rule here called Mighty Strike, which is instead of attacking normally, the wielder can make a single strike, which counts as strength D. Having strength D in combat on a Marine, I don't mind it. I think it's cool. One hit is risky, but mastercrafted means you get a reroll on it, which is kind of nice.
Well, strength D is obviously you could do some maths on this, but when you've got one shot, like one hit mastercrafted, we're looking at about an 87% chance to hit most targets with his weapon skill.
Yeah,
and I guess
an 87% chance to apply damage.
Yes, and D is extremely reliable. So if you're in combat with an Imperial Knight, you'd always go with that. D.
Would you though?
I think you would. I think
because the trade-off is obviously if you these sorts of relics you usually take them on quite a powerful character, it's safe to assume you're going to have 4 or more attacks with that character. Knowing that they've got Master Crafted, so you know, and that's obviously already got Master Crafted, but you'll be re-rolling those hits. You'll be sacrificing up to like 4 or 5 attacks for one strength D hit.
I think that it just depends on the AB or like the wounds.
Sure.
I think when you're looking at something that you're looking for an effect on something like a 4-up or worse, so a 4-up, 5-up, or 6-up.
Yeah,
the D could very well be better because of just the fact of the
6,
reliability of the
sure.
D. If you're looking at an effect on a 5 or a 6, I definitely think the D would be better. So we're looking for a 5-up to glance an Imperial Knight.
Yeah.
And you're only going to get the chance of getting the pen on a 6. So if you're strength 8, I think against an Imperial Knight you definitely go with the D attack.
Yeah.
But against something like an AB12 Walker, maybe you're right. Maybe you go with the.
Sure.
It's situational, I suppose. But at 50 points, when I pay 50 points for a piece of war gear, I want something that's going to work every time.
Is that 50 points?
Yes, 50 points. 50 points.
Ooh,
How much is normal Thunderhammer? Normal Thunderhammer's 30...
It depends what it's on.
Oh,
If
that's true. It's only 20 points more than a Thunderhammer.
Sure.
You can hide it. You can hide it in a unit to make sure you get to
It's
strike.
situational. I think.
Situational,
Yeah.
fair to say. Nocturne's Fury, we're not going to cover that. It's a flamer. It has an option of Torrent. I don't think it's worth delving into. Salamander's Mantle is interesting. I definitely want to cover this one. 30 points. The Bearer has Eternal Warrior. So a couple of points I want to make on that. First one is it doesn't replace a weapon. Okay, so you can take 2 weapons and this. It basically frees up your Shield Eternal slot.
Yeah.
Which means, A, you can either use the Shield Eternal on another character, but it also means that if you really wanted to, you can give them a Storm Shield. Now, this is 30 points. A Storm Shield is 10. So you're going to spend 40 points.
5 to 15, depending on what it's on.
Sure. So you're going to save yourself, 5 to 10 points.
It's basically just straight up better than Shield Eternal
Correct.
because it's optional.
Yes.
Like it's not built into a Storm Shield. And even if you take it with a Storm Shield, it's still cheaper than the Shield Eternal. So,
Correct.
It's better than Shield Eternal.
It's interesting that if you took that on the Cataphracti Terminator Captain, who's, with his reroll, he's effectively got a 3-up invul already, and now he just gets Eternal Warrior for 30 points. That's not a bad play.
Yeah.
You can't be upset with that.
No. It's very good.
Interesting enough that you can also put that on the D strength weapon and have like a lightning claw to give you that extra 1 attack.
Yeah, exactly.
They stack quite well.
Works well with it's very similar to the Gorgon's Chain.
Absolutely. Do you want to pull up the Pyromancy powers just really briefly?
Yeah, sure.
Because the next relic we have is the Tome of Velcona, which is a 25-point relic for librarians. Now, the librarian that has this tome knows Molten Beam automatically from Pyromancy, in addition to any other powers he knows. It doesn't mess with him taking or receiving Psychic Focus. But the big kicker here, I really, really like this. The Bearer of the Tome adds +1 strength for all Pyromancy Witchfires, which, as we can cover, it contains a few powers that could really do with just an extra strength.
Pyromancy's been around for a while. It's a very Witchfire heavy tree. The Primaris being the template, and then Fiery Form obviously giving you the rerolls to wound as well. You can obviously get a lot of damage out of that. Interestingly, with that relic and Molten Beam, you end up with the Strength 9 AP1 Melter attack.
And it's a 12-inch range?
It's just 12-inch range. So that can be quite devastating.
Ironically, I feel like that benefits the least from that, because often when you've got Strength 8 with Melter, you're very likely to pen anyway.
Yep, that's true.
It takes the pressure off having to be in Melter range in some respects.
When your Melter range is 6 inches on that power, I think it's still good.
But what it does, effectively what it does is by having that guaranteed spell from Pyromancy, it makes your level 2, Libby that takes this relic effectively a level 3.
Pseudo level
3. Obviously you don't get to cast the 3 spells depending on what rules FAQs you play. And you don't get to generate the 3 warp charge, but you will have 3 out of 6 spells. Mm-hmm. So just
4 out of 7.
Yeah, 4 out of 7.
You got your Primaris as well.
Yeah.
Any other powers that stand out in particular? I think was there a Nova that seemed pretty.
The Inferno power ends up being. Sorry, not Inferno.
Sunburst.
Apologies, Sunburst. Sunburst ends up being quite strong. The only difference with Sunburst with that relic and Cleansing Flame is that Sunburst is only AP 5, but other than that, you're still getting your Assault 2d6, Strength 5, AP 5 shots.
Ignores cover.
Cover. Cool.
That's only 1 warp charge, isn't it?
This one's only 1 warp charge.
Yeah, that's
makes
very
a big difference.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
25 points, I don't think is a bank breaker either.
I think other spells of note, the Primaris becomes your
Strength
incinerator
6, yep.
stats. Anything else there stands out or?
It's all good. I mean, they're all witch fires. We can go through the whole.
They all
the whole
become. We
tree
don't have
if
to
you
go
want.
through the whole tree, but
That's okay.
the tree becomes. I think it goes from being pretty low
mediocre
tier to pretty good once you add this relic on.
Yep. Vulcan Sigil is a chaplain only. Basically, you can proc it once per game at the start of any fight subphase. He and his unit gets +1 attack. Pretty okay, I guess. And that's about it. There's also a 10-point bolter, strength 5, AP 4, rapid fire, mastercrafted and rending, 30 inches. I was saying, I think before, it seems almost like an Imperial Fist type relic.
Yeah.
But definitely, again, just that fluffy thing of salamanders crafting their own weapons. I don't think it's anything to stress about, but it's there.
I think the Vulcan Sigil thing's kind of one of those things that some players might look at it and think it's quite good.
It's like a banner.
It's like a one-use
It's like
banner.
a banner, a one-use banner.
It's interesting though because you have to take it on a chaplain. A chaplain will give you that one turn of Zealot. Mm-hmm. So it would be good to pop that with Zealot. It's the kind of thing that you might kind of save for a multi-assault where you will be losing your +1 attack from charging.
Sure.
It might lubricate and facilitate multi-assaults, but for 30 points, you have to take it on a chaplain. It probably won't.
I would opt out.
Tax already.
I would opt out personally.
Yeah.
Cool. So that covers the salamanders. Next up, we have the Sons of Korax. Now, was this again double dipping on some of the canon stuff? So
The only thing once again to worth noting is that now they can mix the relics.
Yeah, mix the relics, which is good. All right, fantastic.
That takes us to the psychic powers, which we'll probably cover in our next video.
Yep.
I have a few notes on that just in regards to the perspective that people sometimes take when new big changes come out. So I'll talk about it a bit in our next video, but I think that wraps up this side of things.
Thanks for watching, guys. Obviously some pretty important stuff there, but probably save the best till last. So see you soon for part 3.
Cheers.